Hey guys, it's Adam, and today I'm going to do a short tutorial on how to create JavaFX applications. And the thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be creating an application that has a text view and a button. It's just going to be two simple controls, or one control and one field really. It's going to be a label and a button, not a text field. And what's going to happen when we click the button, we're going to change the text on the label. One that's going to show us how to set up a basic JavaFX application pretty quickly, and how to do something simple with the application, so you can kind of see how to use a control and how to interact with the UI. So to start, there's a couple different ways you can set up JavaFX applications. There's kind of a layout builder way using FXML. That way is pretty cool, but today I kind of want to focus on just setting up a Pojo project, just plain old Java objects with JavaFX, and how to build out UI with just some basic Java knowledge. It gives us a starting point. If you already know Java, you don't have to learn anything special to get started. And if you're coming from a different programming language, I feel like it's a little more easy to understand and jump into. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm using IntelliJ as my IDE. You can use whatever IDE you feel comfortable with, text editor, whatever you code in or want to learn to code in. So because of that, I know there's templates in IntelliJ that help you start JavaFX applications. We're not going to be starting from a template. We're going to be starting from just a main Java class. If you haven't seen this before, maybe go take a quick tutorial on how to set up just the main Java project, because there's some other pieces that you need just to run Java. We're not going to cover that here, but we will start with just the basic main method here. So without further ado, we're going to be going through these steps. If these aren't complete, we'll address that as we go. Probably add one or two more steps to this. And again, the goal is to understand the basics of starting one of these applications and getting to a point where you click a button and change a label in a very plain layout. So that's where we're going to get started here. The first thing we're going to do is extend the application class. So we're just going to do that. And of course we want the JavaFX application. We can move this up here. You can see in my notes here, it says also call launch. So inside your main application, just call launch. Right there. And we can just pass args. That's going to pass any arguments that we've passed to this program to launch. So that's the first part done. The second part is to override the application class, method start. So what that means is when we extend applications, there's actually one method that we have to override, and that method's going to be start. So I obviously used a quick command there, but just all I have to do is do an override of start, and we're going to provide our implementation here. This is the entry point for your JavaFX application. You can see this stage is passed in as primary stage, so we don't have to create one. When they created JavaFX, they wanted to create a way that was easy for people to understand, using terms and kind of reference points that people are familiar with. And they went with this idea of a show or performance, where a stage is where the application takes place. And you'll see from these steps as we move through, the stage is going to hold a scene and a layout. And we're going to explain that a little more in detail, but just keep in mind that this is all focused around the idea of a stage performance. And this performance, in our case, is a JavaFX application. So we've done step 2 here, and we've override the start method. So let's keep our notes in order here. And step 3 says create a root layout. I'm gonna change this around here, and I think what we want to do is create a scene first. So let's do this. And the reason I want to do this because it's going to help me explain what's going on here with this program. So like I said, if you imagine a big square, and this is our stage. This is where our performance is going to take place. Inside this stage, we have this idea of a scene. So like in a performance, you have a stage, and on that stage, during different parts of the show, there are different scenes that are displayed. In the beginning of the show, maybe the scene's primitive, the curtains are shut, and you just have a presenter. But as your show progresses, the scenes could be more complex. For us, our scene is going to be pretty simple, but just the idea that this scene is going to hold our content, the things that exist within our program. And the next thing, after we create a scene, the last kind of layer that we're going to need to be familiar with is this idea of a layout. And now a layout is a way to organize your scene, to make it a pleasant user experience, to make your UI usable, just understandable to someone that looks at it. So we have these kind of layers that go from stage to layout. A stage holds the scene, and a scene holds one or more layouts that help organize the user experience. So let's kind of move away from that for a second and create our scene. So that's step 3. Let's go over here. And this is just going to be as simple as creating or calling a scene object, declaring scene, and instantiating with new scene. Now this is going to take a couple parameters. There's a few different overloads, but if we look at it, we're going to be using that second one. We're going to be passing a root, a width, and a height. We don't have a root yet, and we'll come back to that. That's going to be our layout. But we can do the width and height right now. I'm going to go ahead and say 400, 400. Alright, that's going to bring us to step 4. I'm going to put that above because we need a reference. As we can see with our scene, we need our root. We need our parent root, and that's asking for a layout. Now, like I said, a layout is a way of organizing things within our scene. To start out, as I'm introducing you to these concepts, I really want to focus on simplicity at first, and then we'll extend this out a little bit later in the same tutorial. But what we're going to use first is this layout called a VBox, and VBox stands for virtual box. And that really is a one-column table. And that one-column table sorts items vertically from top to bottom. So as you add new items to our vertical box, or our VBox, it adds rows to our column. So say we add our button to our view, that'll be added here. When we add our label to our view, that'll be added right below it if we add them in that order. I'll just say L1 for label. So this is the concept of VBox that we've been working with. It's a simple layout that's going to fit inside our scene that organizes our elements from top to bottom. So now that we're back here, looking at this create root layout, what we want to do is take that idea of a virtual box, and we're going to run with that. So this is our VBox. This is going to say equals new VBox. Make sure we grab the JavaFX component. Alright, so that's our layout. I do want to actually we want to rename this root. And then we're going to go ahead and pass root to our scene. Before we move on, I want to refactor this into a method to get our VBox, because there's going to be a couple components here that we need to do a little bit more to at the end, and I'm going to do that in an organizable way by creating methods and fields. So I'm going to go ahead and refactor this and extract it to a field. And if you don't have a IntelliJ or Clips, go ahead and just create a private member variable called root and set as a VBox. Down here, we're going to create a method that returns this. So private void. It's actually not going to return. It's just going to set up our VBox. And so I'm going to say set up VBox. So we're going to go ahead and grab this, put it here. Here we're going to go ahead and call set up VBox. Alright, so now we have our scene set up, and it's being, not our scene, we have our layout set up right here. We create a new VBox, and then step 5 is going to be add content to the scene. So below step 3 here, and it's a little confused because we moved a little bit out of order. But just for understanding's sake, when it came to stage and scene, we need to add content to our scene. And what is our content? We said we're going to do a button, so let's just go ahead and create a button. Make sure you do JavaFX button, or otherwise this won't work quite right. So we're going to do new button. This button also takes a parameter. It's going to be text, and it's going to be button. And we had one other element, didn't we? It was a label. So we're going to do new label. This also takes text as a parameter. We're going to just say default text. And I'm saying default text because we know we're going to be changing that label when we hit this button later in the program. Alright, before we move on, I want to show you something about label and button. If I follow button up to button base, and that extends labeled, and that extends control, and that extends region, and that extends parent, I just want to show you this node class. Notice that there's nothing higher than this. I wanted to show you this because in JavaFX, every UI element in JavaFX extends this idea of this node object. This is your base object class. I don't want to go into a lot of detail about this now, but it's important to understand because as I can show you, a lot of methods that are in JavaFX take these nodes as arguments. And as our button did before, you can see you can pass a node graphic. I just wanted you to understand what a node was, and that's pretty much any UI JavaFX element. Anything that extends node can also be passed as a node parameter. So on this button, we could pass an image view with an image on it, with some text, so a button could be displayed nicely with an image. I'm not going to do that here, but just know the concept, and the concept exists that all UI elements extend node. Alright. So we wanted to add content to the scene, but we haven't done that yet, have we? We've created the elements, but we haven't added them to the scene. So I said create a button label display text, and the button is clicked. So we've created those two elements, but now it's time to go back to our scene and add them to it. But how do we do that? Well, we know that our primary stage holds our scene, and our scene holds our VBox, or our layout. So what we really want to be doing is adding these elements to our layout. So let's go ahead and grab a reference to our layout, which is root. Let's get children. That gets all the elements already in the VBox. And we're going to do add all. And again, remember, order here matters because the VBox is labeled vertically from top to bottom. The first element that gets added to the top, and then things get added below it. We want to add the button first, and then the label. So the button's on the top of the label in our view. Now, in step 6, surprise, surprise, we're going to be setting the scene on the stage. So up to this point, we've added our elements to our scene, but we've never told our stage about our scene. So let's go ahead and get our primary stage here, again passed through our as a parameter through our on start here. And we're going to go ahead and set scene, and then just pass our scene that we created, and that's step 6 done. And step 7 is display the scene, set the stage title, and stage display. So let's go ahead and get the primary stage again. And let's go ahead and set the title. I'm going to say Hello World. Very original. And that's just going to set the label at the top of our window. And then the last thing you need to do when you're done setting up your stage is show. And that just tells JavaFX, okay, I've set up my stage, my scene, my layouts. Go ahead and show this to the world. So now we have that set up. Let's go ahead and try running this guy. And there you go. You can see we have a Hello World. There's our stage title. And here's our button and our default text and a VBox displayed vertically. It's not very pretty right now, but at least it's working. But yeah, let's focus on making this a little bit better. Where do I want to see this? Well, I would like to see the button right here in the middle and the label down here somewhere below it. But we can't do that with a VBox. A VBox is a pretty simple layout. I do like that they're on top of each other, so maybe the VBox doesn't have to go away completely, but we need to find a layout to put this layout into to organize things in a nice way. So we have our VBox, but there's this other layout type that's pretty common in JavaFX that I want to familiarize you with. Little dyslexia. It's this idea of a border pane. So if you can imagine again, this is our stage and our scene. So if this is our scene, and let's say this outer box is our scene. I'm not going to draw it all the way around, but inside our scene is this border pane. And this border pane has quadrants, really. And these quadrants are top, left, right, and bottom. Maybe it's not a quadrant, but there's also a center. And the border pane allows you to set content on either top, left, right, center, or bottom. So what we want to do with our VBox that we already have in place, we want to put our VBox, our vertically arranged button and label, into the center of our border pane. So what do we need to do? Well, we need to replace our root, make this border pane our root scene, or the layout of our root scene, our root layout. And then we're going to take our VBox and add that as an object, again on the border pane. So let's go back to our code here. And we're going to close this window. So here we are. We have a setup VBox, and that's nice. But let's go ahead and, again, rename this to VBox. And right up here, we're gonna create a new root called root, and it's gonna be a border pane, and it's gonna say new border pane. And then all you have to do is come right down below, set up VBox, and say root, set center, VBox. This is our node value. Let's see what it's complaining about. Oh, we accidentally passed the... just a typo. There we go. So let's go ahead, and there's one more thing we have to change. Should be, let's see what happens when we run this. We have an exception. It's going to show us where our exception is. And there it is. We don't want to set our VBox in our scene anymore. We want to go ahead and set our root, our border pane on that scene, because our VBox now exists inside a border pane, and we need to add our new root, our border pane, to the scene for it to be displayed correctly. So let's try that again. Well, what's going on here? I thought we added that to the center of the border pane. There's one more thing we have to do. Because we used a border pane, we have an option down here to use when setting up our VBox, and you can add different parameters and different options, different properties to set on VBox. But we want to go ahead and set alignment, and alignment takes a position value of center. So we're going to go ahead and set center. You can try these other ones too in your own time, but we need center. And there's one more thing I don't like about this class. And let me move this because apparently I've blocked the whole thing. Sorry about that. So just to reiterate, we've taken VBox and called the set alignment method, and then set it to position center. And just to show you, these are constants. So go ahead and select center. And again, because we don't like that the button and label are kind of really close to each other, maybe we want to space those out. But let's run this first. I want to show you this is working now. There you go. We have our button, our default text in the center. And that's what we wanted, but these are still way too close. I want to move this text down. So how do we do that? Well, let's go ahead and close this real quick so we can see. And VBox has another method we can call in it. Set spacing, and this takes a double value. I'm going to set 50, and this is going to roughly set apart our button to text field by 50 pixels. So let's try running that. And there you go. And this is starting to look pretty good. We have our button and we have our default text. The button doesn't do anything, but it's displaying correctly. So let's close that and start to think about how to set up our functionality here. Well, remember we have our button up here, and I kind of want to take our button, and we have to do something with it to make sure that it can function when we click on it. What I want to do is I want to take out both label and button and one, just create methods to set these things up, just like we did with our VBox, because there's probably some stuff we can do to customize these items. So let's go to refactor if you're using IntelliJ, or you can just create a field called button. This is just going to make it a little bit faster for me. And I'm also going to do the same thing with label. Nice. Alright, so let's go ahead and create our methods. Private, void. We're going to do setup button. We're going to go ahead and do button equals new button. And remember we just said button on this, didn't we? So we can go ahead and remove this. And then for our label, I'm just going to cut this. And then we're going to do setup label. Beautiful. Alright, so now let's call these up here. Alright, perfect. So now we have a button and label. And what do we want to do here? Actually, let's give a little spacing. And let's format everything. What we want to do down here is add some functionality to our button. So let's look at button. There is on button in all controls in JavaFX the setOnAction method. And this setOnAction method is where you can define your own functionality when something happens. What you need to do is create a new event handler. And what that gives you access to is this handle button. And this handle method, you get access to handle button. You get access to this handle method. And what this handle method allows you to do is define what happens or how to handle the setOnAction event. So when someone clicks the button, this handle method says, hey, I'm coming here for directions on how to handle this action event. So the event gets passed to handle. And then this is where we're going to define what happens on our scene. But remember, when we click a button, we want to set text on our label. So we're going to do label, set text. We're going to say new text, because our default text, if you remember, if we go to setup label, it says default text. We want new text now to be displayed when we hit the button. Let's go ahead and see what that looks like. So here we have our button. I'm going to go ahead and click it. We see new text. If we click the button again, nothing happens. Well, we didn't find anything to happen if we hit it again. So I think to close out this tutorial, I want to show you how we can handle this. So we have our handle event. And what is happening here? We're saying if label, and again, this is to show you have access to text and label, get text equals ignore case default text label set text. So this is our if. Well, you can probably guess what our else is going to be. Our else is just going to be setting our text back to default text. There's a lot you can do here. Obviously, this is a kind of a silly example, but it serves our purposes. If you want to be really cool, you could probably just convert this to a lambda. But for now, just to keep things understandable, we're going to keep it as a new event handler. So let's go ahead and run this. So we have our hello world and our button again. And as we click, you can see it goes from new text to default text, and it continues to change over and over again. That's going to draw our tutorial to a close here, but let's go ahead and cover what we accomplished here. We created our new main class of our application that extends the application class of JavaFX, and in doing so allows us to call the launch method on our main, which eventually on the application lifecycle calls start. Our primary stage, where our show is going to take place, our application lives inside this stage, is passed to us So when you override on start, we have access to the stage. Inside the stage, we set up our scene, and inside that scene, we set up our layout, or layouts. And inside those layouts, we've organized a button and a label to be displayed nicely to a user in a way that we can interact with them easily. And in doing so, we've created an application, and we've I don't know, organized in a pretty nice way. That's going to be it for this tutorial. I'm sorry if I missed anything, or if things got kind of choppy. It's kind of a newer thing for me in this channel, but I wanted to give it a go. Because I think Java is pretty cool, and I think JavaFX is, though an older technology, it still deserves some attention. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. And if you think I missed something, please feel free to add that as well. I didn't go into the nitty-gritty, the grainy details of a lot of things, but I wanted to give you kind of enough insight of how things work just to get started. And I think I hopefully accomplished that. I think I did. If I didn't, again, please leave a comment of like what you'd like to see or what problems you're running into. I think the most important thing to remember is when you're working with the layouts, if you start running into issues where things aren't being displayed, remember order matters. And if things get really messy, because Java is a really verbose language, don't be scared to set up multiple methods like we've done here, where we set up button label. Because as you start customizing these elements, they can get really tricky. You don't always have to set up fields. You can have these things return the actual nodes or the elements, and that way things remain pretty clean. I've only done this because I needed access to some of these things, I need access to these things pretty quickly, and I didn't really want to start setting up multiple objects here. But this suited the tutorial. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you enjoyed. This has been Adam. Peace.